Well, if you needed a pick-me-up on this New Year's Day, you definitely got it with that open, and we're ready to rumble here on this January 1st, 2021. You've got a temperature, high 70s, low 80s, a light breeze coming in off the Atlantic Ocean, about a half-mile east of us, and you just couldn't ask for a better day as we set sail and wish everybody out there a Happy New Year. Jason Blewett, Acacia Courtney alongside. We're glad you're with us, everybody, and here's to a great Acacia 2021.
Absolutely. Kicking things off in style today, we have the Stronach 5, we have 3 stakes on tap, a big guarantee in the Rainbow 6, and just glad to have another year of live racing and certainly looking back on 2020, a very challenging year in many ways, but more than anything, very grateful for all of our fans who've continued to watch and wager on our great sport of horse racing.
Definitely, as we forge ahead and certainly look ahead, and that includes me, I guess, putting on the boxing gloves this afternoon, hopping into the ring on this January 1st, New Year's Day, Beat the Expert. Not to brag, I'm 1-0 this meet. I'm unbeaten for this meet. 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I won. So I'm looking to run my mouth a little bit, and all the more reason to jump in, go over to GulfstreamPark.com and sign up because it's always a good time.
It's free to play too. You could have a chance to win one of the Beat the Expert polos. Jason trying to defend his title this week, and definitely licensed to brag because it is not easy when you are up for Beat the Expert.
It definitely is, and hopefully some of that Nicoletti good luck and good handicapping prowess rubs off on me. Ronnie coming off a gigantic New Year's Eve. I mean, every horse he liked, including his best bet, just seemed to whistle. So hopefully I got a little bit of the Nicoletti momentum and good vibes moving forward, and that'll be needed. Luck, momentum, all that stuff when you throw it into a blender, because today's Rainbow 6 Acacia, a big number. Happy New Year indeed.
That's right, 900,000 guaranteed in the Rainbow 6 pool today. It starts in race 6. We have 11 races on the card. The last 3 races are stakes, so very strong in the sequence, so get ready for that. The pool, we keep saying it, but it really is amazing, as it's just a couple weeks ago that we had a mandatory payout, and it's continued to grow by leaps and bounds every day.
And you know the barrier to entry is a small, it's slight. 20 cents get you in the door for that $900K jackpot guarantee. Meanwhile, a 15% takeout looms in the opening pick 5 of 2021. You've got a $27 play occasion. I see very much built around the Arundel Jorge Delgado horse in the second, the number 1 Excalibur.
That's exactly right, and we've seen this move be fruitful in the past. Blinkers coming off Excalibur, trying the blinkers off for the first time in a while, and moving to the barn of Jorge Delgado. And this horse has run fine with previous connections, just thinking, looks to be in a right spot. And to be honest, I just didn't really like anybody else. And we'll give Luis Saez and Jorge Delgado the single there in the second. It's an interesting race in the third, as you and I were talking about, Jason. Gear Jockey back, second off that big layoff, trying the turf once again, still trying to break his maiden after running third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf behind Structor last year. We'll see what we get from him, as I'm 3 deep in there. I've got the 3 logical players, I'd say: Awesome Roar, Airball, and Katie Lee, who ran a good race in the Claiming Crown Distaff Dash in the 4th race, and then capping things off with 2 deep in race number 5, the Safi first-time starter, Luann, and the more experienced, but at least speedy, Florado.
It does look like they are going to be the first 2 wagering choices in the cash-out leg by maybe a wide swath there, and it looks like on paper anyway, one of those 2, if not both, should be very tough to deny the maiden diploma in that 5th race cash-out. You and I can tell from obviously your 258 to start the New Year's Day early pick 5, we're using the same horses. In fact, how about a nice cold 285 trifecta in 2021? You know, when it comes down to it, as you look at this 3-year-old filly, $50,000 to $40,000 maiden claimer, the filly we picked on top for Safi Joseph Jr. and Tyler G, the number 2, Take Me As I Am, tough beat aside, I just look at that loss last time at GPW, or it was at Gulfstream? No, it was at GPW in early November, right around Breeders' Cup time. In fact, I think that was one of the Breeders' Cup days,
Breeders'
November
Cup Friday.
6th, right?
Yeah.
Breeders' Cup Friday. You know, she lost a tough one that day, but I still think that race, quite simply, is the yardstick to this race.
the reason that she had speed was kind of what pushed it over the edge for me. Yes, she ran a good race last time. She did just get run down at 60 cents to the dollar, but blinkers on today. I'd imagine that's to add a little bit more focus, as sometimes we've seen some of those horses coming out of those Gulfstream Park West, particularly maiden claiming races, struggle a little bit into some of the deeper waters here in the championship meet. But I just think she's the one to beat in here. Has the best last out race and ran fine in special weight company prior to that. Don't push your luck as dropping in class, but she is making her first start here in South Florida, coming down from Woodbine, and she has been up at Mark Cassie's training center in Ocala for a little while, which I like. As I've often mentioned, horses coming in from Woodbine, I tend to find maybe just need a little bit of time physically to adapt, maybe a race here, or at least a work in South Florida first.
And Mark Cassie's got a number of Woodbine shippers here over the next couple of days, and we'll see what that horse does with Jose Ortiz. Now, Jorge Delgado sends out the 5-horse in race number 1. That is Sweet Baby Raylan, the firster by Cantharos with the Misael riding. He's also got your early pick 5 single and my top selection in race number 2. That is the Rail Post at Excalibur in a 2-lifetime 6250 claimer. We're outside of Excalibur and the 5 Senzioni. Just not a lot of options that look all that realistic on paper.
I agree, and that's kind of where I pulled the trigger on Excalibur. You don't love a horse that was beaten double-digit lengths as the favorite last time out, but as I said, she's run fine in the past, and Jorge Delgado has done a very good job taking on some of these Arundel horses. The blinkers come off, and Luis Saez, it just seems to make sense in this spot, and just not really having much faith in anybody else. Edgar Zayas keeps him out on Sensazione, who also ran a fine race last time out, finishing 3rd at the 7 furlongs.
Now we'll go actually a mile, a little beyond 7 in race number 3. We're back on the turf for our first maiden special weight of 2021 at Gulfstream Park, and a race that, with a compact field, that needs to be stated, but it's still a field that basically conflates into that December 2nd rematch and that blanket finish between your top pick, the 2 Eagerly, and the 4, the Angry Man, and then you've got Gear Jockey, the 7, who I picked on top, not coming out of that race, but he's got questions to answer as he comes in off, a rather nondescript 2020 campaign where he only ran 2 times.
He did, and he ran one of those times in 2020 in the Fountain of Youth on dirt. And I remember speaking to Rusty Arnold when they tried him in that dirt maiden special weight back at the end of 2019 here at Gulfstream. And he said, you know, he's been so good on the turf, you have to find out if he can run on the dirt and take a stab at some of these Kentucky Derby prep races. And obviously, things didn't work out as they had potentially hoped. You still have the turf to go back to, but there had to have been some issues along the way, too, as we've only seen him once since then. It was a live race that he comes out of at Keeneland. You just kind of wonder, I think it's the same question for all 3 of the horses we have. When is one of them going to break through?
Yeah, there is a cookie-cutter sameness going around with the resumes of the 2, 4, and 7, but again, they sit as the big 3 by a wide margin in that compact field in the 3rd. Cutting back on the grass for this Friday 4th race as we go the 5 furlongs with this 16K starter allowance, and in the middle of the pack, I think a lot of people, their bread's going to be buttered between the number 3, Awesome Roar, who's been a hard hitter at 10 for 27, my top pick, the 4, Airball, and, of course, the 7, Katie Lay, who's run some big races for trainer Kathy Ritbo. Let's start, though, with Airball, who's just, a salt of the earth, razor sharp, super tough, and just very, very tenacious Florida-bred mare by Wildcat Air, who's coming out of a tough loss for trainer Carlos David, and here's the race in that run-up to the last few cards late November over at Gulfstream Park West. Just no issue, Acacia, with her speed or the fact that she may not win every time, but you better show up with your A game because she will fight and fight and fight. I like this horse a lot.
Oh, I know you've been a fan for a while, and it's tough not to be, honestly. She's very, very game, and she's ultra consistent. You got to love a horse like this as she's just caught at the wire to be beaten ahead in the final strides. I mean, it really is true. She fought on the whole time. I do wonder, as Katie Lee was off the pace last time, but typically is more of a speed type, and Sweet Yarndira has a little bit of speed. I don't think any of them are as fast as Airball early on, but I was hoping to get a closer in the 3 Awesome Roar home. And I thought it was interesting, too, as Luis Saez takes the call on this one. Just looked up a stat between trainer and jockey, and we talk often about where Luis Saez lands. When he rides for Antonio Sano, it's very fruitful, especially on the turf, which I found very interesting.
Yeah. Not really a turf barn,
yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Big ROI. There were some big priced horses in there, but 23% win and 40% in the money.
Yeah, no, that's a good stat. And it's funny, Louis maybe more than some of the other upper echelon riders. I feel like that's a good stat. And maybe him more than others were going, oh, why is he riding this horse? And I think back to that Ramon Minguet firster you liked here on Wednesday that won and paid around $11 or $12 with Louis in the iron. So, you know, good stat there, and another tough mare who does like the turf and hits pretty hard going 5 furlongs. We'll go 6.5 in Friday's 5th race, moving on to this maiden 12-5 as we cash out the first pick 5 sequence of 2021. You're 1-4-4-1 to close out your early pick 5, and I wound up having the same plan of attack Acacia between Florido, who's 0 for the baker's dozen, against the first-time starter for Safi and Frank Calabrese, and a rod riding the 4 Luan.
Yeah, this is another case where it's a first-time starter for 12-5 with a high-profile jockey like Irad Ortiz aboard. Kind of hard to ignore, even though your immediate gut reaction is to not really like her in a spot like this. But with Irad aboard, given the connections, just spotting to win, Philly by the Big Beast, it looked like this could just kind of be the right place for her to break her maiden at first asking. You respect the speed of Florado in her last couple of races. It's just that she has not been able to get the win, already now making start 14.
That is start 14 for trainer Peter Walder from that inside post as we take a little breather here with 5 down and 6 to go. $900K on the other side of the break.
In the 2-path. Ground on first inside. Race. A quarter of a mile to go, and he's 6 on top. It's last of the 12 as they roll into the backstretch.
A new year, but the same promo code, that Sport of Kings. Bang it out. Download the First Bet app as Jason and Acacia welcome you back. A happy new year to everybody out there, and happy birthday to the horses, by the way.
That's right.
As we have this 11-race January 1st card, and with the new year comes our latest round Acacia in the Stronach 5.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. Great to have the great race plays back in the mix as we'll have the 3rd race from Santa Anita. It kicks off at our sister track, Laurel Park. First for races 8 and 9 in their sequence, races 9 and 10 here from Gulfstream. Both of those are stakes. And, of course, Santa Anita in the 3rd as well. Fun sequence today.
Definitely, and that's a perfect segue into today's $900K guaranteed Rainbow 6, where you have half of the sequence, in fact, 3 stakes making up the 6 races as far as the front-to-back action goes, and you're going to take a little gander and stab at the play, and how's it looking?
I've got a little bit more expensive than usual, $5,760 with that $900,000 guarantee. I could not find a single. I think it's a tricky sequence, but a very, very fun one. And it starts off with quality, too, in this allowance sprinting on the turf for the newly turned 3-year-old fillies. As you and I were just talking, I think a race where some horses can really take a big step forward did not include the 2 California Lily, who is the morning line favorite. I have my big questions about her, but we'll talk more about that race momentarily. I'm too deep with the 1 Time Won't Let Me Go and the 4 Ensign Parker in race number 7. The 8th race, I've got 2 horses as well in the 6 and 7. We'll see if Breakbeat, who does come back for $35,000, can get the job done today. The Janice is the 9th race. The 2 coming out of the Breeders' Cup and Imprimus and Extravagant Kid are on my ticket. The cash run for the 3-year-old fillies. Really looking forward to this one. 3 deep in there. And then I'll try to get a long shot home in the Abundancia with the number 7, Dixie in Candyland, who could be a closer in a race with quite a bit of speed, but some coverage there in the cash out, 57.60.
Jakarta, obviously the one they're going to have to get around, and the spotlight will be firmly placed on her shoulders. But I hear you. I don't know how much breathing room she may have in that race, especially if you're right and they are motoring in the early stages. Looking at this 6th race, this is a nice little Rainbow Six opener, without a doubt. Just a really interesting 3-year-old filly now, allowance optional claimer on the turf going 5 furlongs. You and I are clearly anti-California Lily, and since she is the morning line favorite, why don't we start the narrative with her? And, you know, the more I did a little, I guess, forensic work on her 2 races to date, mainly, of course, that big and very fast synthetic win at Woodbine first out for Mark Casse, the more I felt as though that race might be a little bit of an anomaly with the horse who just doesn't have a turf pedigree to my eyes.
No, she doesn't. And California Chrome himself did win on the turf. So maybe, I guess that's the question. The mare was good, but she was a dirt sprinter. And I'm guessing maybe it could be the influence of those 2 very fast workouts on the Palmetto turf course. Maybe she does like the grass quite a bit, but I have my questions too, potentially at a very short price as well. And as I had commented to you, Joy's Rocket, the Asmussen filly that won the Songbird, she's fine. She certainly runs some nice races. I don't think she's a superstar just as far as company being kept, though she does come out of stakes races.
Now, the 4 Lioness of Brittany is part of the Gulfstream Park West Honor Roll. I really like both the races she ran over there, and I know Ronnie and I liked her quite a bit, moving from her first to second start. You've got Steve Caceres and Lily Caceres doing a great job, and, man, the improvement, as good as her debut was with an impossible chasing outside trip against a worthy winner that day, Don't Float the Ice, who may have been the most impressive 2-year-old filly turf winner we saw over at GPW, certainly for, again, the gals. I really like the way Lioness of Brittany has just run at this point.
And Steve Caceres' barn, as you mentioned, Steve and Lillian have been on fire throughout the championship meet, and very good numbers from the barn with last out maiden winners on the turf, especially sprinting. Filly by Anchor Down, who fittingly is gray, and looking forward to seeing her, but I liked her last race a lot. I really think that the 3 Magical Soul, and you have some interest in this one too, she's 20-1 on the morning line. I think she's going to run very well today. Watching back in the Stirrup Manor last time, Honey Pants will see stretching out tomorrow coming out of that race. She was well beaten, but stuck in kind of that chasing the pace. I thought her maiden win at Monmouth was very good, and she's one that I think just needed a little bit more mental experience. And how about the day yesterday for Junior Alvarado?
Yeah, Junior with 4 consecutive winners, swept 2 consecutive pick 3s in the process, 3 wins for trainer Bill Mott on the card, and Junior riding a very good Irish bred in a New York girl who I would imagine is going to have her eyes and hooves pointing to some great at stake. She looked pretty solid. Fuzia the 7 for Safi Joseph and Edgar Zayas. Probably found 6.5 a little too far. Maybe the competition slightly too tough, and she's back to 5 here on a turf course. She was good over the summer as another major player. Let's move on to the 7th race here. Again, still 3 stakes forthcoming throughout this late pick 5 sequence as I begin a $32 play in a 10th race down the line that I've got quite a bit of wiggle room. I almost pulled the trigger on singling Jakarta in the last, but Acacia will tell you I've been a fan of the 6 Miss Aramet for a while now, and she's run some big races sprinting on the grass, and she's going to get the acid test this afternoon, stepping up and trying stakes horses for Eddie Plisa, so I included her. 10th race, again, a lot of coverage. I do think Rachel's sister, the 8 Gladys, I think she's going to run a big one, and she's going to be a nice price off 2 slowish kind of races. How about Acacia? And I'll wrap up. Again, it's a $32 play. I mean, just on January 1st, having in Primus an extravagant kid in a non-graded turf race knocking heads. I mean, that's about as good a matchup you could have in the turf sprint division.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. And I caught up with Joe Orsino, trainer of Imprimus, yesterday, and he said they had thought about taking him to Saudi to run in the sprint there, but they said, let's stay home, going to run here as he's been doing so well, and then point to the Gulfstream Park turf sprint. So we're happy to have him back at his home track.
Yeah, we definitely are. He is a talented horse, and hopefully this year he really gets to strut his stuff. Like the number 1, Time Won't Let Me Go, who's down inside in race number 7, and he's my top selection for the obvious reasons. His last couple of races, coincidentally, wins have been good. He seems to be improving with each race, and he's got some early speed for a trainer who's on a good run right now in Kathleen O'Connell.
She certainly is. He makes a lot of sense. Honestly, he's never run a bad race recently, though, in his 3 starts so far, I should say. Last couple nice victories at shorter prices. I took a little bit of a shot with the 4 Ensign Parker, who did run a big figure for his maiden win at Gulfstream Park West, and I think really backed it up last time out, finishing second behind Beaster. Irad Ortiz takes the call, so I may not get much of a price on him with the presence of that rider. But he's one I just visually liked his last couple of races, so we'll take a little shot, but absolutely time won't let me go, the one to beat.
Let's get on to the turf for race number 8. 2 lifetime $35,000 to $25,000 claimer with 2 mega barns in the mix here. In fact, 3 if you include Sappy's horse, the 4 Calibrator, who I have third. But mainly the real meat of this race happens to be the Danny Gargan train number 7 Breakbeat, who you have second, and I do as well. And I thought the Brad Cox horse, the number 8 Zip Along, who's just been pretty sharp going 2 turns on the turf up in the Big Apple. We discussed, though, Acacia, Breakbeat's last race when talking about the third race today with the Angry Man and Eagerly coming back, and you'll get a look at all 3 of those horses, mainly focused in on Breakbeat, who I guess my takeaway was not only was this a harbinger of things to come for trainer Danny Gargan, who is now 8 for 14 at the meet, and I somewhat tongue-in-cheek said yesterday on Twitter, just give me Tax in the Pegasus. Tax will beat everybody. But, you know, I think Danny is also properly spotting this horse off of a narrow win in that blanket finish in a race I think a lot of us felt may have been on the softer side of a Gulfstream Park Wintertime Maiden Special Weight.
And maybe kind of an elevated maiden claiming, but a win's a win, and obviously, you know, Danny Gargan is very logical about placing his horses, not afraid to drop in for the claiming tag, and this one had already been running for maiden claiming, though a high-level maiden claiming up in New York. Scano, who beat him back in Saratoga, was, I think, making start number 14 that day.
Yeah, for Albatrani, right?
Long-term maiden for Tom Albatrani. So I agree with you. I think he's one you need to use, but maybe be a little bit hesitant. So I tried to beat him like you. I took the Dom Scatino runner, though, in the 6th, the North Remembers, and Dom hasn't had much action down here in South Florida just yet, but the horses he ran here last winter seemed like he was winning just about everything. So we'll see if the barn picks up. I thought the race for a comparable level last time in his first start in Florida was pretty solid.
Now we move on to race number 9. A lot of ground to cover here late in the day, Acacia, because 3 consecutive stakes races on this New Year's Day. And as we turn our attention to the $75,000 Janus Stakes for older horses on the turf at 5 furlongs, you've got that distinction of no Lasix being permitted in the Gulfstream Park Stakes races for 2021. And that's an interesting question to be poised to connections and trainers and stuff as this meet progresses. But, you know, off the bat, Lasix or no Lasix, you've got 2 really talented turf sprinters, both coming out of really tough trips in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. There's a lot just on this race alone to digest. Now, Imprimus is in the yellow cap, white shadow roll. He'll check and lose all chance. Extravagant Kid, red cap furthest on the outside. I mean, he pulled 2. He didn't have, like, the real dramatic check and be, like, completely steadied out of the race like Imprimus did. But, I mean, could you have pulled a more of a ground-losing type trip from post 14?
Yeah, that obviously hindered him right from the start. I mean, I don't think he got even out of less than the 4 path throughout the entire race. He really actually ran very, very well. I'm glad you pulled that, because just watching the replay, the chicklets for the 13 and the 14 are switched somehow when you watch the replay just regularly on the feed. So he was not close up as it shows in that replay. He was very far off of it and very, very wide. And Primus,
I hadn't noticed that with the chicklets.
Yeah,
it was only a Breeders' Cup race, but it's okay.
Right. So Imprimus, though, did check back, as we saw. He loves it here at Gulfstream. Not had the luckiest year for sure. And as far as the Lasix conversation does go, as we know, before coming back here in 2020, he had 2 throat surgeries. And Joe Orsino just saying he's a lot more energetic this year, dives into the feed tub, really seems to just be feeling better and not making the noise, as he's able to use all of his airways now.
Oh, that's good. And was Joe concerned with him coming off Lasix when you talked to him?
No, I mean, he's running the King's Stand without it. So they took the option to go to Royal Ascot back last year, knowing that he wouldn't run on Lasix, and now with this year running without the use of medication at the Stronach tracks, something that trainers are just embracing as they know this is the future of racing.
Definitely. And Brendan Walsh, what a job he's done with a newly turned 8-year-old, an extravagant kid. 2 Florida breds, mind you. One by Broken Vow, the other by Kiss the Kid. A heck of a matchup there in the 75K Janus Stakes. I mean, 2 really grade 1 level turf sprinters. Race number 10, meanwhile, is for the 3-year-old fillies as we check out the cash run here. $75,000 stake on the main going a mile. And a lot to digest in this race. And let's begin actually down inside with the likely favorite, who's unbeaten, by the way, in the one Shady Summer. This is going to be obviously a gut check time and a profound test for this unbeaten filly by Summerfront, who got the 6.5 last time out. Here's the race in that juvenile fillies sprint. Unfortunately, it rained over there. It seemed like it rained just about every day, and this was the biggest one of that entire meet, or the second biggest. Look, I mean, she's got speed. She's got good figures. What do you make of her being a Summerfront out of an Empire Maker dam stretching out and going a mile this afternoon?
Yeah, it's very interesting. The dam, her 3 wins were going long on the dirt. So she was a good dirt router, though it does look like there could maybe down the road you have an option for pedigree for turf too, but she's been very good so far. You like when horses are stretching out that they kind of have that even running style, and she has some natural speed, which is always a big advantage, and especially with the inside post, you'd imagine she's going to be pretty sharp out of the gate there.
Now, the 9 Honoree Feek is a honor code filly, a gray filly who you picked on top. We'll get to her race beneath the lights at my old Kentucky home at Churchill Downs, beneath the Twin Spires. You gotta, I think, go into this. Not only did this race come up relatively strong on fire, the progression she has shown to this point, right, for Eddie Keneally?
Yeah, and I got a chance to catch up with Tyler Gaffleone yesterday, too, and he said mentally he's noticed a big difference in her, having ridden her the last couple of times, where 2 back, she was a little bit distracted, a little bit nervous. Last time, just really seemed like she put everything together. So her benefit is that she has a win at the mile and has gone a mile and a 16th, running a good race, too. So we know distance is not going to be the problem for her.
And I'm hoping distance and thinking distance won't be an issue for the 8 Gladys, who liked a little last time when she improved dramatically from her first to second start. I know the race was at Gulfstream right before Halloween. It didn't come up all that fast, and in hindsight, it was a fairly run-of-the-mill field. But looking not only just at Rachel Alexandra, it just seems like every horse in this family had a lot of Kim, and there's a lot to go around and a lot of evidence to be had. It just seems like she throws nothing but stone-cold runners with a lot of class. And I would imagine with Kelsey Danner, she may not win today, but we're going to get the best effort to date thus far with the 8 Gladys.
And I think getting the distance was a big step forward, too. This will be a great litmus test for her and how she does stand up. And I didn't pick her anywhere, but I'm rooting for her, too, because obviously it's hard not to love Rachel Alexandra, and you hope that legacy with the family continues on.
Definitely. Gulf Coast coming in from Tampa. Her Florida debut, or at least Gulfstream debut for trainer Rodolphe Brisset. She's going to take some money and is another contender in a race full of them. The Abundancia is up next as we close down the opening card of 2021 here at Gulfstream Park. We will do so on the grass, a short game sprint here at 5 furlongs. And again, the spotlight and the pressure cooker firmly placed onto the shoulders of Jakarta, the Pennsylvania-bred mare by Bustin' Stones. And here she is on that opening Saturday card. Big favorite against a field that was easier than the crew she's going to face later today in the Abundancia. But again, similar situation, Acacia. She was a big chalk. The bullseye was on her, and with that grindy sort of low gear, gallop you into submission style of hers, she was able to get the nice win, and I'm going to take her here as the favorite.
Yeah, she's absolutely the one to beat, and it's funny because typically she shows a lot of speed, and she had to kind of come from off of the pace this day, and her class really just prevailed in the claiming crown. It really did, and it very much could be the case again today. She could get another trip just like she did last time, and that would suit her well, because I really do think there's quite a bit of speed. And I'm hoping that it is that case, as the 7 Dixie and Candyland is a price play I'm going to try to get home in here. She did win back here in the spring at Gulfstream. She was beaten as well by Miss Aramet, so a nice little rematch for them. But I'm kind of keying off her race 2 starts back at Keeneland, where she was beaten by a repeat winner in a bit of both. I think you can forgive the Kentucky Downs race on a soft turf, going 6.5, and behind got Stormy.
She's a solid horse.
Yeah.
And I like that she's run well here at Gulfstream Park for Eddie Keneally. Not without a chance here for sure, the 7 Dixie and Candyland, as we dive into our New Year's Day lightning round here on this Friday edition of Gulfstream Park today. And we start off January 1st on the right foot, and appropriately wishing all the thoroughbreds and the horses out there a happy birthday.
That's right. January 1st, all the thoroughbreds in the Northern Hemisphere will have a birthday today. So even if they're born in a month other than January, they will change their ages as far as how the racing conditions go. So 2-year-olds, now 3-year-olds, and on to those big prep races as we get ready for the first Saturday in May.
And how can you go wrong with that picture?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
not
awesome.
an
That's
awesome picture?
That is great.
That
I
is
love
great,
that.
for sure. Great indeed, the 4 runnings of the Pegasus, whether you're talking the turf or the dirt race. And sure enough, we've got some Pegasus vibes and a few Pegasus topics, beginning with Tax, who won the Harlan's Holiday here a few weeks ago for Danny Gargan. He stretched his legs up at Palm Meadows yesterday, a half and an easy 49-3.
And he's just coming in. I think he's almost like a different horse now, as he'll make the first start of his 5-year-old season in the Pegasus World Cup, having stumbled at the gate last time out. Physically just matured so much, and that I thought was a very impressive race and a very strong prep.
And what are we doing for the Pegasus World Cup betting challenge? Lot of cash up for grabs. I mean, $274K, assuming 250 entries show up.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And the top 5 get seats in the NHC. So check out all the information on pwcbc.com. I've heard great notes about the Pegasus World Cup betting championship, so make sure you check it out.
Definitely. And as far as our Twitter poll, we try to do 1 or 2 of these a week on the lightning round. In the off chance trainer Bob Baffert is not watching the show currently, I'm going to have to send him the results. And because the Twitter poll was even losing 'tis the law in the Pegasus World Cup, as far as Bob Baffert Charlton goes, do you ship him the Gulfstream Park off a win just last weekend in the Grade 1 Malibu at Santa Anita? And you could see an overwhelming, with nearly 175 votes, Acacia. It was overwhelmingly, yes, get him here for the 9 furlong race.
Yeah, off of the layoff, that seems like a very strong prep for him in the Malibu. He ran very well, beating a nice field, though it was a compact field. And Bob Baffert saying the big bucks could be next on the agenda for Charlatan, whether that's the Pegasus World Cup or the Saudi Cup. And we very much hope to see him here.
We hope, and you know, the fact that it's a mile and a furlong as opposed to a mile and a quarter, being a Speightstown, not saying he can't go 10, but my confidence with him going 9 in a dazzling effort, it's right here at Gulfstream in the Pegasus for a trainer that's already got 2 Pegasus dirt victories with Mucho Gusto and Arrogate. Now, Christophe Comant very much in the mix. He's got maybe the deepest crop ever, just in terms of depth of as far as 2-year-olds, now 3-year-olds on this New Year's Day. And one of them, in fact, Hit the Woe, is running tomorrow afternoon in the Glitter Woman Stakes. I mean, you got to see her win at Aqueduct last out. This was a big effort out of her.
And she was a main track only. The race was rained off, but she had also been cross-entered for a dirt race, and she was able to run on the main track there. And though it was a wet track race, she just did it so easily. And even her debut, where she finished second, I thought was very, very strong. She and her stablemate, Shop Girl, who had a similar situation, though doesn't seem to be as quick as Hit the Woe. Looking forward to seeing that one try deeper waters tomorrow.
Definitely, and it'll be deeper waters because there are 5 stakes in total on that January 2nd program here at Gulfstream Park, because Karakatsi, who is running in the 3-year-old filly turf race tomorrow afternoon, well, she broke her maiden and paid over $30 in the process. This race for Amando de la Cerda and Karakatsi, she's out in the middle there, red cap, just grinding clear and deep stretch. She was a little bit green. The runner-up Queen of the Green returned a couple of days ago and won at Tampa pretty nicely.
Yeah, and I think Queen of the Green was probably the one to beat, was really hindered by that post in that race. But Armando de la Cerda is actually very, very good with first-time starters and continuing on with them, particularly on the turf. You think back to last year in Cheermeister, who was so good in these turf stakes we saw throughout the winter. So we'll see if he has the next Cheermeister in his barn.
Definitely. I hope that's the case. We like Armando a lot. Meanwhile, the Stronach 5 does have a couple of stakes in the mix right here at Gulfstream Park. 3:55 Eastern p.m. will be the start time up at Laurel Park.
Gotta love this. A lot of action in a short amount of time. 12% takeout, 3 tracks in the mix. You can't go wrong with that.
All right, let's move on to the big man upstairs, Pete Aiello. A happy New Year's Day to everybody out there, including the big man upstairs who's got those Friday scratches and changes.